Welcome to A Dose of Feel Good. I'm your host, Whitney Bischoff, and today we are talking about the transformed mind. You can see full show notes at doseoffeelgood.my.canva.site. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to episode 37, and our topic this week is the transformed mind. And as I was brainstorming what to cover this week, my initial thought, I won't lie, was who am I to be talking about what it means to have a transformed mind? I think we all struggle with our mental health at one point in time, one way or another, and I'm no different. I think if we think of it in the terms of, from our physical health side of things, we've all been sick before at some point in our lives, but it's a lot more difficult to think of it from the mental health side of things. That, I think we think magically one day we're better, and that's just not the reality. It ebbs and flows. And so when I first thought of, all of a sudden we have this transformed mind, that's not necessarily how it works in reality. And so I think when we're thinking about this topic, I think it's really important to know that what we're talking about is subtle shifts in our mindset and how we approach life. And that's what we're talking about in terms of what does it mean to have a transformed mind and mindset and just approaching life in a different way. And I think starting with thinking about, as Dose of Feel Good, the whole point is how do we choose to approach life more positively in this space where we can see the light and see hope. And I think it starts with really being aware that being positive is a choice. That's a choice that we get to make, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's an intentional shift to where we want to be, and that's where that transformation takes shape in our mind. And that's this space that I think, at least for myself, that I really want to lean into in the upcoming few months, is that I think it's uncomfortable at first, the transformation phase, if you will. If it was the easy choice, we would sit where we've always been, but that's not where that transformation takes shape. And I think it's easy when we're talking about mindset in particular, because if we don't make any changes, then we're just in this same space. And that's oftentimes, in a space where we're hurt or we're struggling. And if we don't make any intentional changes, that's where we sit. And that's not a great place to be in, but that transformation also is difficult and takes that intentionality. That's also really hard. And so we have to kind of struggle, I think, through those moments, and I think sometimes through that hurt. But if we don't struggle through those moments, then we're just going to continue to sit in those places that aren't comfortable and in the end don't work well for us in the long term. And so I think when we're talking about how do we transform our mind and get to that place where we can really say, oh, this is where I've always wanted to be, we have to start with asking ourselves, what spaces in our mind do we want transformed? We can't just say like, oh, I want my mind to be transformed. Like, that's so vague and big that where do I even start with that? And so I think it starts with like, what nuggets do we want transformed? Is it that there are spaces that we want healing from? Are there spaces that we want forgiveness? Do we want forgiveness for ourselves? Do we want forgiveness? Do we want to forgive others for maybe hurt that was caused? Do we want this transformation in giving ourselves grace, which I think sometimes can go with that forgiveness? Do we want this sense of calm, of we're busy, buzzing around? Do we just want this space where we can breathe in this sense of peace? Or is it, this transformation of acceptance, of accepting who we are, who we were made to be? And I think these are all, transformational pieces in our mind because they're hard places to get to. Right. I think for me, a few of these were all ones that I highlighted because I think it's taken a lot for me to transform my mind to get to a really great place in some of these. And I'm still working on it. For my team, I talked about, grace is my word for this year because I want to give myself more grace, especially because oftentimes I measure how well I'm doing or my worth to others by how much productivity I give and how much I can give to others. And I'm just not in the space right now physically where I can do as much as I maybe want to do. And so giving myself that grace to take a break and to, know that my worth isn't measured by that productivity. And so that's still transformation that I have to do. And so I'm still working on those pieces. Right? Where I would love to tell you, and I am going to celebrate this in the moment, that I've definitely gotten to a place where I've had this transformational experience where I 100% accept who I am. I am a ball full of energy all of the time in all of the spaces. I think sometimes even in spaces where the energy maybe shouldn't be as high, but I bring that energy and I don't water that down. And I've finally gotten to a place where I know that's the energy that needs to be in those spaces, but that's been a long transformational journey. And so I can finally say, like, I've got that transformed mind in that space. So not in every space. So it starts again with asking yourself, what part of that, of your mindset do you want that transformational process to begin? Choosing one, and then again making intentional reflection and processing, where and why maybe you're choosing that, how you got there, and paying attention to how you talk to yourself in those moments about that particular topic. And we'll talk more about what that looks like in practice. And again, I think if we think of it like a physical transformation, it doesn't happen overnight, For the most part, I think of this a lot with weight loss, or if you're going to the gym for the first time or whatever that looks like you're not going to see results overnight. You have to put in that work and eventually you'll see those results pay off. But I also kind of think of this as a physical transformation in you can chop all of your hair off and someone's going to see that right away. And so same with mindset, there are some quick things that you can do so that people can see that mindset shift right away. And so we'll talk about what those differences look like. So just like any physical transformation, the same is true for a mindset transformation. And so putting this into context from a story lens, I have started watching The Middle a lot from Amazon Prime. And so if you haven't watched it, it's these really short episodes. Doesn't take a lot of brain power to watch it, which is the shows that I've really loved watching. But one of my favorite characters in the whole world, it's about a family in the middle of nowhere. I think it's Illinois. It might be Iowa. I don't know. But it's supposed to talk through small town life, normal everyday life in the Midwest. Anyways, there is a middle school, high school girl in the family. Her name is Sue Heck, and she is everything you would think of as a stereotypical nerdy girl. But she does not care at all what anyone thinks of her. She tries out for everything. Doesn't make any of the teams, but she keeps trying. And I was watching this and I honestly related to her so much. I was a little weird in middle school, high school, mostly middle school. But I did care a lot about what people thought of me. And I think a lot of young people do. But I was like, I wish I could have just been Sue Heck way back in the day. But I've gotten to this place, I was talking about acceptance. I've finally gotten to this place where I know my energy fills this room, and Sue Heck embodies that. And I now know that as an adult. And so now I'm like, oh, I am finally what Sue Heck was as a young person, and now I am as an adult. But if I would have just known that younger, in my younger years, but it took that shift and those learning experiences. And I just think if more people knew that, honestly, a lot of people aren't even paying attention. And so you don't need to pay attention to what other people are thinking of you. But I think it's also, at least for me, like whenever I start getting really down on myself, it's this intentional positive mindset shift. So I talk about all of the good things that are in the world, and really thinking of, I was talking with somebody recently, of being intentional about choosing where and who gets my energy. And that's really a transformational experience for me, because I used to be this people pleaser that everyone got nuggets of my energy. And now I know that my energy is valuable, and I want to be intentional about where that energy goes, because there isn't an unlimited supply. I also think of this as, we all have those moments of like the last straw with someone or something, right? And so I think when we hit that piece, whether it's approaching burnout or just kind of our patience is wearing thin, I think of that as like that physical moment where we just choose to like chop off all of our hair. So the transformed mind can be super quick like that, because we've hit that last straw. So we have no choice but to transform our mind in that moment and choose how we respond. And I think being intentional that we're going to choose to respond in a positive way in those moments. And so that's what we're talking about with that super quick reaction, but in a positive way, when we've just kind of hit that last piece, that it's all or nothing in those moments. I think the impact of this can be really huge. Thinking of, when we see a physical transformation, whether that's, seeing a body transformed, the environment that we're in, seeing like the building, whether that's rebuilt, painted, renovated, whatever that looks like, removing the junk, but being able to actually see that result, from a physical transformation, we go, wow, this is so cool. Look at all of these changes that were made. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. But I think if we really were intentional about making those changes, but then also celebrating when we transform our minds and making those mindset pieces, and then recognizing that in others, just how beautiful that can be. And I think we should put more energy into that, and recognizing when someone has done that healing journey, because it can be really powerful and impactful for other people. And we know that it's more difficult because we can't see when those mindset shifts happen, but we know it's real because we can feel it internally when we choose to, really put in that work and make that change. And I think also being open about that journey and sharing that with others. And if we hear that someone's really put in that work, acknowledge that work that someone's put in, just like we would, give acknowledgement to a body transformation or a renovation of a home or whatever that looks like. Normalize the work that is put in to really transform their mind and the impact that can have. Because I genuinely believe that when we transform our mind, we're not only doing that internal work, we also transform how we see the world, how we choose to see the world, how we approach people. And when we do those things, we send this ripple out that's far and wide, but it starts with us choosing to transform our own mind and healing from those things in those moments, one step at a time. So how do we actually do this? So our call to action for the week. Again, first, really identify, what do you want to transform? What pieces of your mind do you want to transform? And figure out why. Why are those the pieces that you've chosen to transform in that mindset? And don't choose to fix all of the things at once. Fix one, maybe two. Choose one or two that you really want to work on. And reflect and process, why are those the pieces that really you feel like will make a difference if, maybe you're approaching, say it's acceptance is something that you really want to work towards, moving from that people pleasing. Where did that come from? Why is that something that you really have focused so much attention on? And what would it mean to look different? What would that difference look like? What freedom would you feel? I think really acknowledging what brings out sort of a either emotional or behavioral reaction from you. What are maybe the negative consequences that you feel in your body in the current way that you're approaching those things? And what would that look like to heal from that journey? What would it look like when you reach that transformational experience? How do you genuinely know when you've reached that? How do you know you've reached that transformed mind in that moment with that piece that you've identified? And then choosing what 3 action steps that you can take each week to work towards that transformed mind in that moment with that piece that you've identified. So I know those are a lot of call to action steps. As always, I'm going to put together a toolkit for you that will be released on Tuesday this week. So look for that on Instagram and Patreon. If you want one that you can download, you can always DM me and I can send you a PDF copy. They work really great on iPads. I use my Kindle Scribe to do the work. Yes, I do the toolkits each week as well. I also want to give a shout out. We have our inspirational merch that is out in the world. I bought my own. They came in. I'm super excited about them. They look so good. So if you want your own copy to share some feel good out in the world, make sure to take a look at our merch store. Otherwise, stay tuned. We have some fun stickers that are going to be released shortly. And if there are certain topics that you want covered, make sure to reach out, send me a DM. Otherwise, have a great week, and I look forward to having you join me next week. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you are feeling ready to conquer the week and let your impact ripple out to the world around you. Let's connect on Instagram and Threads at Dose of Feel Good Podcast. If you're loving the podcast, I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Until next time, share your own dose of feel good and never underestimate the power of positivity.